So to do this compression check, we've got the throttle held open with a stick. We remove all the spark plugs. So now we have a nice unstressed load on the engine. Gee whiz, 185, that's almost too good. Number 2 is the same. Number 3 isn't quite 80 pounds, and that, my friend, is very bad news. More bad news is almost 60 pounds. It would not run as good as it ran if it had 60 and 90 pounds. It just passed smog in the middle of February. This is the middle of April, which is a very simple job. You've just got some 8mm heads to take off. There's a 13mm bolt back there. I'll let this move so you can move this out of the way. So remove all 8, they're 13mm. The rockers and the push rods are the same length. Alternators 13 down here, 13 there, 15 here, 13mm. Save your gaskets because you don't know what's going to happen next. I have to pull this out of the way and then you can put it back. 13, there's some 10's back here, 13 over there. Remove this to get to that 10mm. And that bottom one goes in that bottom lower hole. The upper one is for the upper cable. 2 clips. This was already broken before I started. I super glued it back, but it'd be very easy to break these. And then through ignorance we broke this one. Learning curve. You get that broken end, right? I was trying to get this off. Anyhow, this was really stuck, so it's down in here, and very difficult time getting it loose. Pull the fuel injection signals off. You need to remove this fuel injection line across here, and I don't have a T27 Torx head, but that's what you need, so I've clamped a vice grip on there. So make it really tight so it works the first time. And I said let's just pull this out so we can get to this. But now I've just discovered that this also has a Torx head over here. So we'll see what happens next. To get this off, I had to go buy a Torx head. I personally like to break these like an 1/8 of a turn at a time, just to lift the torque off the head. That bracket is over this engine mount with 315 nuts. This is 2 15 bolts, and then you get to those 2 the 13mm heads there. 2 bolts are 13. To remove this power steering pump, you need to remove 3 bolts that are accessed through this pulley. There's some holes in the pulley, but you can only do one at a time, and I've gotten the first one loose, but it's inside the width of the pulley, and I don't know how I'm going to get it out yet. There's also one on the side over here down low. We'll see how I get this bolt out. The screwdriver is pointing to a socket there. This would be the one on the far left. We took the one out from over here. It's extremely difficult to get your hands down in here, so to get this socket on by itself so I can undo it by hand, this is a very unpleasant experience. So the way I got that bolt out was to take a screwdriver, put it down here. I could just catch a thread, and I coaxed it out by going back and forth like this, one thread at a time, which took 30 seconds. So that one I was able to get out with some angled needle nose. So the third one was down in here, if that gives you any reference. The way I got it out was to put my hand on either side, right, like this, and do that. That's the only way I could get down there, a hand on each side, and just slowly coax it around. This comes off the power steering bracket. There's a bracket running this way. This goes through there. My finger was pointing to the bracket that's on that intake manifold that runs over to this power steering pump. Okay, and then the 3 bolts go through here. I see little bits of carbon. Carbon. Let's remove the head gasket. Brought all 4 pistons up to top dead center, stuck a feeler gauge in 2 places, well, here and here. And it's about 17. Just stick the feeler gauge down to where you hit the first ring. Well, I filled that with water, and it took about 2 minutes, and it's actually gone away. So now we need a reference. So this one's leaked out, these two haven't. Those are the two with 180. I've taken an old can of gunk, which is basically diesel fuel. We've poured it into these cylinders. We rotated the crank so everything's even height. And we're doing a leak down test. Diesel fuel is oily and thin, and gasoline will wash you too clean. So try and use diesel fuel if you're doing this, and ATF or whatever is kind of too heavy. So what is it, 50 minutes? And I don't see any leak down, so that's not an issue. That's some good news. Tilted the head up at an angle and run the fuel line down there up into here. It's all loose. And now I'm going to put the head gasket on the base and rotate the head into place, supposedly. Well, I don't have a book, and I had to do hours of researching, and I'm as certain as I can be without having a manual that this is some kind of an unused, like, EGR valve hole. There's one on both sides. When you blow on here, air comes out the other side. So I'm going to go ahead here and reassemble it. I just wish I'd been conscious of that hole prior to getting started. Fuel line will travel here, come up here, pushes in there, and bolts here. This will bolt to the head, and then there's an area right here that corresponds to the head. Here. Get all your surfaces clean. Get your new gaskets in place. Make sure you choose the right gasket. You might want to use assembly lube. This bolt must go in before this goes on. I don't have a manual, so this is another reason to take pictures. This goes here. This bolt, the original one, broke off, so the only bolt I could find I had to make a standoff for. This is how we remember where things go by using the videos. So in making this video to help you, the gentle viewer, make your job more simple, I put the wrong gasket on here. You can see an earlier video clip, and I confused myself with my own stupidity. I changed the oil, so put some oil in there and put some oil on that ring and put your oil filter on. There's a 13mm bolt with a grommet, rubber grommet. The vacuum line that goes back at the block here. The only way I could get this in was to remove this intake plenum. And then I could get my hand back here and maneuver this vacuum line onto its fitting. With this in place, I simply couldn't get it done. Maybe you can. I recommend you put this in place and then move this intake into position. You'll have to shift the engine around to get this engine mount to bolt using your floor jack and some levers. Well, this is sort of what it looks like. You got a fuel line, clips on, clip on. Up here is a push on, and here's a strap, and over there's a strap. See there? And then your fuel tank, we're upside down, remember, will drop down. And you only have to get maybe 18 inches off the ground. Fuel tank removal. Need a pair of pliers, and you'll crimp a fitting here that'll allow you to remove that. And this is a hose that you'll probably have to replace. This unplugs. There's also a little like pull pin in here, okay, that you pull out sideways, a plastic piece that allows you to move that. This tank had been out before, and these are upside down, so I couldn't get to them. So to siphon fuel out, had to go here, and it wasn't easy. Now that we've got everything all clean, we're going to remove this C-clip by compressing it and then lift it out. Here's a pull tab on the fuel sending unit. Alright, so it lifts straight up. You've got this O-ring here. Then you're going to compress this plastic to release those little tab. Like squeezing it creates a clearance. Then you can rotate this off. Got to release these, both sides. See that white tab? Okay. This slides sideways in its housing. Then you put in this anti-pulse, and it will look like that, not like this when you insert it, right? You'll insert that side up. The old one does pry off with some difficulty. I put grease on that O-ring and it slipped right in. With oil it wouldn't slip on, and neither when it was dry. Alright, the fuel pump makes noise, so now we'll see if it starts. Alright, seems to run. End of video.